Hi, this is Cindy
And Michael.
from Part-Time Permies, and we have, looks like a few people in the room so far. Hello to Instant Shop, W. Callahan, hello, hello. Build on the Rock Homestead, Carrie, hello. I'm going to have to keep reminding myself that's you.
Well, that's right, yes. I forgot for a moment. I
Linda,
recognize, but I forgot to put the two together again.
yes, Linda Taylor, hello, and Green Gables, and your mom's here. Welcome. So thanks for joining us instead of watching Super Bowl. No, it's probably gonna be towards, well, at least in the
I
second
have
half.
no idea. I've been busy. I've not looked at all.
Well, we don't have TV anyway,
Well,
so
I can get
internet, but yeah.
get plenty of information. I haven't been on the computer all day. I haven't plugged my computer in yet.
Oh, you haven't?
Since I got back, yeah.
It was a busy weekend. We were gone all day yesterday, so yeah, we didn't get a featured forge item done. So, and I guess, oh, I never did check. I'm guessing you guys can all hear us all right. Let us know if we need to adjust volume or anything on this end. But yeah, it was a little bit busy this week. I did get one video done. However, it was not a video for the page. I got one video done for Justin Rhodes on his member page. I did a little bit more detailed single video on the greenhouse build. So any of you guys who are members at Abundant Permaculture, Justin Rhodes' place, that video should be going up soon on their page. Plus, they are opening up the membership for 5 days starting tomorrow. And for those of you guys interested in that, we do have.
Maxed out, what, 200 or on that?
I'm not sure if
it started out at only 200.
Yeah,
it might be slightly bigger, but
I'm not sure if he has a max at this point because he's not like kicking people out of it, but he's letting people join for limited windows.
But you also get their company email and text abilities to him, so it's limited because he can't handle
too many people.
He doesn't want too many distractions.
Plus the Facebook page and all that, and then
we have a direct link for that, right?
Yes, actually it's in the description below on this video. It opens up tomorrow. So if you guys are interested, I know Crystal's already a member. We're a member. I think a few guys are members.
Didn't Linda or Tina? Was it Linda or Tina? Somebody came, I know, originally.
A few of them came from, from Justin. So yeah, for anybody interested in a membership, we do have an affiliate link for the membership in the description of this video for Abundant Permacultures. It opens tomorrow, but you might be able to get on the waiting list because I think he's been posting a waiting list. I'm not sure if that works through our affiliate link or not, but I know he opens it up completely tomorrow and it's only open for 5 days. So if you guys are interested in that, for those of you guys who are not yet members of Abundant Permaculture, that's, a lot of good information there. And he's asked some of his premium members to submit videos, those of us who do videos, to submit some educational videos for him for the membership. So that's why we're promoting it. We do have a video on his membership there.
My head's crooked.
Your head's crooked? Is my head crooked?
I don't know. I've been working. No. I don't pay any attention. Doing other stuff.
You're setting a trend. Fashion show. No, we are not a fashion page. Yeah, I tried to see what the cost of the page was. Never found it. I would check it out tomorrow because the cost has got to go up tomorrow. I forget what it was because, yeah. I think
I want to say it was between $150 and $200 for the year.
That might be the premium membership, though.
Oh, what is this?
This is just general membership.
Oh, I think premium was around 200 for a year.
The general membership, I don't know.
I have no idea. I didn't know.
Yeah. So yes, the two levels of it. The premium,
and the premium's one where you get some of it, like
the webinars
and stuff.
Yeah, he does the webinars. In fact, we just came from his webinar to start our live show.
Yeah.
And I think Crystal was in there, and Tina was in there. Some of our regulars as well. So that's how I know you guys are members because you're premium members. But yeah, so. Yeah, and Claire, love being a part of that group. Yeah, it has a really good discussion page on Facebook too, where people just ask questions and
it's pretty active and it's full of generally good stuff. It's not full of a lot of junk that you got to filter through. So.
Yeah, no, it has, and everyone contributes to answers too, so it's just nice. Yeah. Yeah, Crystal doesn't remember.
Yeah.
Hi, Food Forest Permaculture. So yeah, if you look at the link below, we do have a link to that. But the actual uh, he's opening it tomorrow, so you can always come back to it tomorrow if it doesn't work today. But I think he's starting that wait list ahead of
So what
time.
are we doing?
So what are we doing today?
What's our membership doing?
Our membership.
What are all you
We
guys
don't
doing?
have
We don't
memberships.
have a
We have
membership.
public accessibility. Although we'll be working on getting some items onto the webpage that will be like additional things, I think, for purchase. We'll work on getting your beef butchery guide up there. I haven't done it yet because it's been too busy. Probably do the same thing with the pig butcher
Yeah, it'll be
guide,
similar.
and then we'll probably start. I'm working on trying to figure out how to start adding videos to that as well. So our webpage link is below, and that's where we do some of the free information on the blogs. And I have been working on adjusting the blog page part of that webpage because I want to be able to set up a index of the things we've covered so far. So I have the index set up except for the links. So the links will be added in there soon, and I'll be continuously adjusting that.
Oh, the one other thing that came up that might be of interest for limited people, Justin was saying there is about 3 spots left for the hog butchery March.
First weekend of March.
Yeah, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 3-day butchery. You need to get a hold of him personally. I don't know if he's even publicly posted, and it's almost full.
Yeah, and I think that's probably because I'm not sure if his his email. You can always email him.
Yeah, if you email him directly, there's open access if you get a hold of him if there's still spots. I don't know the exact cost. It's but it is 3 days. It's like, what do we think? 27 hours of class.
Yeah, it's gonna be
I'm
a lot.
teaching the majority. I'm doing the majority of it as far as the instructional.
Hi, Tina.
And he's host, and Hollers will be there filming. I'm almost certain.
Yep.
And it's going to be a whole bunch of fun people there.
Yeah.
So, but it's farmstead butchery in the field at the barn. I think it's almost all going to take place outside.
Yeah.
We're going to go all the way from hanging, finishing through preparation, cutting.
The cull.
The cull, cutting. All the way through cleaning, skinning, and scalding.
Yep.
Cutting into portions, packaging, and starting to do some preparations like some curing, light smoking, and sausage making as much as we can get done. It's pretty intense. I teach it as a professional level class targeted for the home person. So we give you a ton of stuff and you pick and choose what's useful. But it's a pretty active time, and it's going to allow you to do whatever level of hog butchery you want by either purchasing from a local farm or doing it on your own property. And we don't have pigs, so I don't get them live. No, here I go to a friend and I get a nice source, and then we have them send it to a local place to get it all nice and set up for me, and then I do the rest typically.
So Second Half Homestead, there is if you talk to Justin, email Justin Rhodes, he does have a few spots available for being at the actual workshop, but he does also sell the video after the fact.
They're going to crunch down the 3 days into a video
or multi-chapter video.
I mean, it's a long version. I think it'll run just under $100. There's a beef one up that's similar.
Yeah.
And so if you can't be there because of time, location, or costs,
look at that! Sorry, congratulations, Tina.
What's that?
She got a promotion. No more nights and weekends.
Oh, really?
Awesome. Sorry.
Oh, that's awfully nice.
Yeah.
So there is ways to get a hold of this stuff and us doing what we're doing. I haven't seen the finished video. I've been so busy. Meg Holler did most of the shooting and editing on it. And did so she had a lot of raw content and crunched it all down. So those are all being done through him, but I'm doing a lot of the work on it, and we're really targeting it towards home butchery, not professional, but we're trying to put a lot of professional content. And then the packet has all the information, detailed information on muscles and musculature and cuts and some recipes and how, things that we can't even cover in the class because it's more academic. But if you want it to go back, and there's a whole bunch of literature resources you can get your hands on. Linda's
asking, would you ever teach butchery from your house in the future? You guys are closer.
Not here. We might. I mean, but we have other outlets to do that.
We might be partnering with some other Michigan homesteaders but we'll have to see where that goes.
Homestead Dad is doing a feeler. He is looking at doing something with some hogs, 2 or 3 hogs.
If you're interested in
In
that,
maybe March. I haven't heard a date. It's just kicking around.
So Linda Taylor and anyone else in our local area,
email Homestead Dad.
Email Homestead Dad or go to his channel and ask him that question on one of his videos, because I know he was putting feelers out asking if
he had a video going, hey, is anybody interested? What are they interested in? A 1 day, a 2 day? We will take part in that if it our works. Schedule allows us to.
Yeah.
We'll take part as much or as little as he wants. There are other people in the area also. So yeah, we might do something to do a collaboration with them in the Michigan, Indiana, area, Ohio area. And yeah, so there's a variety of outlets.
That has been.
There's a new video up where we did a lot of that activity, and that was with a lot of the Michigan crew. We're outside of Kalamazoo, west of Kalamazoo.
We don't have our video up yet.
Oh, you don't have it up yet?
No, it's coming out. I was going to announce that.
It done.
No, the only one I had done this week was the one for Justin. No. I started it.
So yeah,
it will be a video this week on a community bird train project, and we're going to start that as a series. So it's going to be short parts of it as a series that we will put on our channel. First one will probably go up on Tuesday, Wednesday, sometime midweek. So definitely keep your eyes out for that. But we'll do it as a series like I did the Greenhouse series. So it's a bunch of short videos. I might also, this is where I'm debating trying to put together a longer start to finish video once we have everything set. And that I'm debating putting as like not a member area type thing, but maybe sell access to that on our webpage if I can figure that out. Because if we're starting to put things for sale, we'll do that. But I'll do
and all that stuff we do pretty minimal, because this is really hobby.
Yeah,
anything that we get from it is really buying Cindy's camera and paying for like editing software. It's basically covering costs.
Yeah,
because we don't see it really as a gainful income generator. Activity that's
unless it who knows what takes off, but it's not our.
It would
be
an
goal.
Accident.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, I might do, and we could possibly host something here at some point. I have all of the equipment other than a grinder as large as I would like. I have a grinder I find a little bit small, but all the rest of the cut, cure, handling equipment I have, I own.
Yeah.
And I actually, the one thing I have to be careful is I have to do everything outside or in our barn or through our kitchen, because I have a commercial kitchen in the basement, which allows me to handle meat, but it has to be USDA processed.
Yeah.
So if we got a prepared carcass of something, I can actually use my kitchen space.
Mm-hmm.
I can handle it there because I'm under permit. If we did something like a farm kill or just it didn't go through a USDA inspection, and as many of you may or may not know, if you go to a deer processor or somebody, they can do hogs or deer or whatever. It's legitimate. It's overseen by the government, but it's not stamped. I can't legally have that in my kitchen, my home kitchen, but not my professional kitchen. So I have to be careful of that situation.
Yeah.
And I definitely respect that. I don't want to lose my license for doing something silly that I won't cause any problem. The other thing is I don't like a lot of grease things in my kitchen, because I run a clean kitchen. It's a manufacturing kitchen, and it's got grain. I don't run a lot of grease in there because of our water and sewage handling, and I want it to be sanitary for extra sanitary for my special handling. So, but there is potential that in the future it might do something.
We have some questions.
Yeah,
Tina, do we have a link for the PDF? That is what I'm looking into putting together a way for people for very small minimal fee to purchase. I just got to figure out how to set up that. I'm working on that because we have a program that we might be able to do that with. We haven't had a lot of time in the last couple of weeks, so that is on my to-do list, and I'll let you know when it's ready. For Roe, where in Michigan are we? We are in Southwest Michigan. Berry bushes are under snow.
Yeah, they have no leaves. They look like twigs. It's hard to tell if they're dead or alive. I drove through some of the big blueberry fields today.
Yeah.
Not physically in them, but next to them. I had to drop off a trailer that I'd rented for an event last night. The roads were icy, but we stayed on the roads.
Yeah.
They're all clearing from the warm weather. And so I did go through some of the blueberry, and they're all nice and purpley caned. We have some berry bushes, some wild and a little bit of cultivated.
More wild.
But we will have no idea generally a hard winter with good snow.
We're fine.
Unless when it's crazy cold like it is, if they're not well protected, you can lose some. But we had almost a foot of snow, which generally means that super cold weather doesn't affect them. And with a good snowpack and a good hard winter, most of the berries actually thrive, and you're going to hopefully get a good crop. Last year we had a poor crop on our wild berries because we had about an
Well,
8-week drought
yeah,
right as they were starting to develop. It was too wet.
on one of the wild berries. We
Yeah,
have dewberries
the
that
dewberries did very
did not
poorly.
do well last. Well, I don't even think it was that so much because the year before we had a bigger drought.
White blackberries.
I think it may have been too wet for them because in the spring, because the year before when they were in flower, because the year before they produced great and we had like the worst
Yeah.
drought. And then we do have raspberries though, and they did fine.
Well, it depends on when they catch the water,
Yeah.
and we got the drought right as they're starting to develop and they dried up.
Yeah.
Don't they call white blackberries iPhones?
iPhones.
I think.
Well, they're definitely not Android.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway. So
yeah, I love blackberries. I like currants. We don't have. Well, we do have some currant bushes that we just put in. They're probably not going to bear. They probably won't even bear.
Take
this
a couple
year.
years.
But white currants, the tannins are really low on them because black currants and things can have very high tannin content. So yeah, we love berries.
Yes,
we love all kinds of berries.
Suburban Hillbilly. I think all of the schools across.
Tina has buds. We're not going to see buds for months.
No.
It's going to be so long. We did lose a couple this year. We're down to 1 or 2 in the front.
All of the schools across the state were closed on the big schools, the universities.
Yeah, most closed Tuesday afternoon.
Wednesday and Thursday all day.
Yes.
Because we got down to negative 16 degrees, and I actually have pictures from and snowy and icy. So that's our back.
I saw negative 12 or 13 even in the city when I was driving around.
Oh no, I saw negative 16 while I was at work. Yeah. I still had to work because we weren't closed. But
currants are illegal? Oh, come on.
Currants can't be illegal.
There's different variety. I mean, there's so many varieties.
Really?
That's crazy.
Unless they're
Oikos, yeah, we know Oikos.
Yeah, they're nearby us.
We have friends. So Oikos is a great. By the way, if anybody wants specialty, and especially northern hardy, and specialty items, Oikos. There's a few others, but they do really nice product and do have some rare product. They're not perfect, but they're really, really good. They sell online. They're kind of a weird company. You cannot go there and pick stuff up. They don't have a retail. They don't want to see you. They don't do tours. They're very kind of quiet about it.
Yeah.
Because they do a lot of their own crop propagation. We do have some friends that either worked with them or are close friends.
They're friends of them.
And they get in and they get batch buys, wholesale batch buys, and some specialty stuff. So once a year or twice a year. But Oikos is on your list of really great specialty chestnuts, berries, heirloom items,
apple
hickory,
trees,
some of your fruit tree.
Some of the fruit trees and a variety of things. So they do have. They're good. They're local. They do not have a local storefront. They're just online, but they actually grow literally probably a handful of miles from us.
Yeah, they're relatively small, but I would put them in the same categories as Johnny Seeds.
Oh, better.
And but you're really premium specialty doing some things. And what we really like is because it's super sandy soil and it's so close, they grow in very natural circumstances. If they're pulling something out of the ground, we can stick it in the ground here and it's just like home for it. So we know that it's going to do really well.
So anyway, for going back,
they're food forest driven.
Yes, they are. There's actually a big permaculture club in a way. They have Facebook group for just the local
we are rich
people.
With permaculture within our immediate area, and even our area west of town has our county, which is fairly sparse, has a serious permaculture group.
Yes. Yeah. Our county and the neighboring county have a group together actually, and I took last year. I took classes from a permaculturist who trained in Australia. I took classes all summer, about once a month all summer, and that included a site visit. It includes plants, so we're getting a lot of our plants from them.
Get new stuff in the spring.
Yeah, we could get plants for like
He kind of
full
likes our
year.
organic pasta, so
We could trade
there
too.
there may be some good trades because he's pretty much a trade economy.
Well,
He
you know what?
prefers trade economy. So
We've already paid for the class. We get plants from them for a year.
yeah, we get quite a bit of
Yeah.
stuff, but we have a good ongoing relationship with
Yes.
pasta movement in his direction.
Yes.
So
I've actually traded pasta for some tools that he had too. So
yeah, he's a really
garden
good
stuff.
resource,
Yeah.
and we've put stuff up on it.
So,
So Lily
yeah.
House, we've linked them before. Not much YouTube, very minimal YouTube, but a nice
He has
nice
some.
blog and a nice website and a little bit of YouTube.
Yeah. So his YouTube is actually under Mike Hogue Lily House. I think you can.
Yeah.
It's Lillie, and it's in Kalamazoo. So Lily House, Kalamazoo. But that's definitely interesting.
And he's permaculture certified to teach.
Yeah, yeah. He has a PTC.
So he does permaculture, agriculture design, mostly natural agriculture design, permaculture based. He does some building and structures. He does tinctures and and light medicinal and salves. So he teaches as a class. He teaches light herbalism, and so he does a variety of things on.
Oh, there's a currants used to be illegal. Were they
may be invasive, but
that's what I was thinking.
That's what they were saying. But all the berries are invasive. That's why they grow so well.
That's true.
And if they're invasive, you can't keep them out anyways.
Just look at our raspberries and blackberries. Now they're natural, but they're definitely any open clearing, they move right into it.
We barter. I mean, we don't do a lot of heavy bartering, but because I am at the farmers market, I offer cash to people for purchases because I understand that the cash is important. Mm-hmm. But also there are a number of us, especially closer friends, that we see each other regularly. We do trade more stuff because I've moved to a lot lower cash economy over the last couple of years with my business. I'm operating on a lot less cash, but I have a very high value specialty product, and I consider that a lot of their products. And the problem is we all have a glut of products, so we value our product, but we don't always value it as highly as it is. Mm-hmm. And so where they have an abundance of some vegetable, especially, which is perishable, mine's non-perishable, I can get almost more than I think is fair because they're low value or their abundance, and so we can create a good value trade without any cash.
Did we even say what your product is?
Yeah, I was just saying I was swapping pasta with Mike.
So and Suburban Hillbilly actually did post a link.
So it is, especially farmers that I feel are undervalued and they tend to be overcropped all at the same time. It's a great value trade where I can get an abundance of things that I need that maybe we're not growing those items, and I feel like I can give them something they don't have, and it's a perfect non-cash swap. And so it's just small amounts. And a lot of times we want to start doing other things where we're putting a little more local product into like some raviolis or some of our purees. So
we don't do cryptocurrency.
No, I haven't done any cryptocurrency.
Yeah.
It's too up and down and crazy. I don't have a good. Yeah. I have some Russian friends that are really big cryptocurrency.
Yeah. So
Mirabelle Plums, we've heard a lot of good things about them. Yes, Mike really likes them.
Yeah. And that's we do have a number of things we still need to. We're actually really just beginning our food forest area.
The preferred spot is on my white car for.
I think they're.
Birds do dirty work. Yeah, mulberries. I'm not a big fan of mulberries. We have one on the very edge of our property and barely
small
that showed up accidentally. It hasn't grown real fast. I know people love mulberries. I find them a little over, and you can make wine and juices with them or blend them. I find them a little. They're not my favorite, and because they're so invasive and messy, that's one item I would prefer to limit or not have. So we kind of leave that one off the side.
Yeah.
And if we get more seedlings and things growing up, I will be cutting them down and pulling them out, but they just keep coming back.
Yeah. So I am going to change the subject because we were talking about cold, and it was frigid this week until yesterday. And I did want to give you guys a heads up because I haven't done a flock update with the cold. They are doing fine. This is Lucky and his flock, who did venture out when I had treats for them.
Yeah,
we have a covered run out there, and do have food and water for them, and they come out in and out there. But they're doing pretty well. I mean, there's 2 chickens that had some frostbite. Really Miss Blue had frostbite. She did have some frostbite before this cold snap. And it did get a little worse on her comb and her wattles. But she is the chicken with the largest comb and probably second largest wattles. I do have one rooster has larger wattles. So the rest of them, not even any frostbite, and it was -16 with a -36 wind chill. So they did all right. Now, our dog, on the other hand,
She did not want to go out. I think
no.
she went out and went to the bathroom like once or twice a day
yeah,
in 24-hour periods.
she
We were
did not
concerned,
like
like trying to get her out there just to make sure she occasionally had a desire to run down to the basement a few months ago when we first got her and go to the bathroom down there. So I was watching that she didn't sneak down
to the basement.
there.
Yeah.
It's pretty well cordoned off, and she didn't. She was good, but
she avoided
we took her on
it.
some quick walks, and she wanted to go a little further, but we knew if we got too far down the road,
she didn't. Her
we didn't want to be out too long, but also, her feet, and we're like, we're not picking you up and carrying you.
We didn't do the quick walks when our highs were negative
No,
digits.
there were 2 days we didn't go.
Yeah, so there were 2 days we didn't go out. But Tina, the love affair, are you talking about the Lucky and Houdini? Yes, Lucky and Houdini. Lucky loves Houdini. Houdini has no clue about it. But Houdini did not have frostbite. Houdini's doing fine. Most of my flock has cushion combs or something similar, smaller combs. And I did that on purpose. I got Chanticleer rooster and bred it with the birds I had because Chanticleers are bred for northern Canada and do better in the cold. Now, my Chanticleer rooster does have a little bit of frostbite on one wattle.
Secondary Homestead has a Dane too. I don't know if we knew that.
Oh, yeah. So I love my Great Danes. Yeah, Great Danes don't like the cold. My Great Danes have not liked, and the wet, you're right, the water.
No, they don't like the water, most of them.
Pudding's a little better with
Jello
rain.
didn't want anything close. Yeah, he hated it.
If you watch any of our old videos from, I guess it's been over a year now, we had a Great Dane on some of our first year videos called, it was a blue Great Dane called Jello. He hated water except to drink. He would not touch a toe in water. If there was a puddle, if there was a stream, and we were hiking, he had to jump over it.
We had to put a raincoat for him to go outside.
Yeah, he would refuse. He would refuse to go out during the rain. Puddin is better about rain.
She's definitely normal, but she doesn't. She's not.
She didn't like the cold. She didn't like the cold. She
also grew up in the South.
She did. I mean, she's a 2-year-old Dane, and we got her 2.5 now.
She's really thin, and her hair is moderate. Dane hair is thin, so yeah.
But we did hit 40-some degrees yesterday, and I get home and pet her.
We hit almost 50 yesterday.
Yeah. Well, today we hit almost.
Today we hit about 50.
Yeah, and she started shedding insane for a Dane. That was just for my petting her, by the way. We used to have a Saint Bernard too, and our Saint Bernard, of course, shed like handfuls. But the
other thing that happened, so we went from very cold, just above freezing, to below freezing, to super below freezing.
As highs.
We were like, middle of the day, -10, -12, and I remember some really cold snip in 1993, and that's, I think this might have been slightly colder, but it was effectively the same. That's the last time I remember being this cold for a period of time. Now, we were out of the Michigan area for a period of time.
Well, my first winter back, we had -15, and when I was just starting to learn how to take care of the chickens.
So what happened was, it was so cold and everybody was bundled up. We had no problem with heat or freezing anything. My truck started, my plow truck. The starter seemed a little
frozen.
A little bit. The starter was a little frozen for a second, but it started. I did all my plowing. I can tell you that the hydraulics were a little slow lifting. Things were thick. Also, all the cars behaved, and there were a lot of car accidents Friday night. When I drove in on Saturday, our stretch right down from us, there's like 7 knockouts in the wire retainer down from our road. So one night they must have had a whole bunch of cars off the road.
Yeah.
But everything was good. But what we noticed was, as it started to warm up, it didn't feel bad a couple days ago. Yesterday, things were melting and the ice was starting to come off the road. It was a little slippery.
A little.
People were going around, like we're in Minnesota, we were back into our light coats. So now it was in the 20s and we're all in light coats and everybody's like, it's great.
I was in a sweatshirt yesterday.
Sweatshirts, people were out like it was spring. And then.
But yesterday morning, yesterday was crazy. Yesterday morning, I went to the farmer's market because we had a big event last night that you had to actually cook some stuff for. So I went and covered farmer's market. It was in the teens.
Two family. How you doing?
Yeah, it was in the teens when I left here yesterday morning. I had my big Carhartt jacket and sweatshirt and everything. Going to the farmer's market was fine. At noon, loading up from the farmer's market, taking stuff back outside, it was above freezing. It was probably in the it was getting into the upper 30s at that point. Now it was getting hot, so I'm just in a sweatshirt. We go to this other event, which, by the way, was Why Not Festival, which we did a year ago as well.
Well, that's just a great picture.
I know it's not the best picture, but I didn't get the best pictures. Kate got the best pictures. Kate was the one who helped us.
Tell her to send them over.
So, but we went to the Why Not Festival and sold pasta, prepared and dry pasta there. And we're unloading there and it's getting into the 40s. And I'm like overheating in a sweatshirt outside.
So yes, Great Danes are drama queens. Putting super shy. So she's our shy supermodel. But Jello he was much more dramatic, but he also pranced around like a horse. He had a lot of character. Yeah. Pudding's just very shy.
She's timid.
So, and I saw comments back there on second half home said we had a Saint Bernard also.
Yes.
I don't know if you have a Saint Bernard, but we had a Great Dane and a Saint Bernard.
Initially.
We lost a Saint Bernard almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And then we lost our first Great Dane about a little over a year ago.
We lost our Saint Bernard 2.5 years ago because it was before we started the channel. True. It was in the middle of the summer, I want to say, or was it in the spring? Was it
summer? It was August.
Yeah.
I think.
And he I mean, I think good thing he passed away here. He had cancer. He passed away here at home, which I think is kind of nice on one hand, but so yeah, we liked our giant dogs.
Yeah, so we did it was super cold, but we had an ice coating before that we couldn't really get up off our driveway, and most of the roads still had ice. We got so packed down where I felt like I was in Upper Michigan, where I haven't been in the winter in a long time. Mm-hmm. And they got smart and they started just sanding a snowpack. So you didn't actually have pavement. You just had packed snow, and they were just sanding and not salting. I'm like, thank you. That's what you're supposed to do. Yeah. It's not slippery. It's not overly slippery at all. You just drive, a little carefully.
Yeah.
And then as it started kind of coming up a little bit and warming just a little, I had to go pick up a U-Haul trailer on Friday afternoon. So we have cut through country roads that are banked. And I was trying to decide which roads I could come through to go get the trailer. And it wasn't really that bad. We have snow tires and all-wheel drive, and I wasn't going to carry a heavy load. But then last night, things glazed a little bit. Even though it was about freezing, the banks were cold enough. They were putting some glaze across some of the roads.
Yeah.
So
the parking lots
we were careful heading home, and actually I slid across. One of our worst roads is always iced. I knew it was iced.
Yeah.
And I actually felt the back of the trailer sliding sideways on the road, but I also knew that I wasn't stopping, and as long as I kept pulling forward, it would move the right direction. And so we
night food.
And there was nothing off that road anyway. Yeah. So I was like, well, and I didn't have a heavy load, so it couldn't pull the car off even if it wanted to. So we did that. So we got that in, and I dropped the trailer off. I was hoping the roads weren't going to be iced going back this morning on those country roads. And
they clear?
They were actually very clear. They were just slushy in a couple places. I was surprised how clear they were.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, and then we came home, and there was no electricity. They'd blown a transformer.
Night.
Yeah. And the whole village, our whole area was totally blacked out, except for our neighbor has a generator and stuff. But incidentally, this whole thing with everybody wearing light coats and it felt great, while it was about mid-30s last night for a low, I think. Our heat was off until 4 or 5 in the morning. We didn't even worry. We were totally comfortable. We didn't turn on our fireplace because it was late at night, and we were tired because we'd worked hard all day. Mm-hmm. But we weren't worried at all because after that cold weather, it was fine. And then we had heat on by the morning, so we got the morning heat up.
Yeah, it was fine. So, but yeah, our electricity obviously came back, so we're on tonight.
In downtown, I had to go downtown today to do some drop-offs and get equipment back and whatever, and a large portion of downtown was totally knocked out. All the stoplights were out, and I think all the freeze thaw and all the excess water is blown up a few transformers because they had a big portion out that they were trying to correct.
Western Kentucky was 68 degrees.
Well, today. Stefan said, what was it?
He was in the 60s.
He was in the high 60s, and he's
Cincinnati.
in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
So yeah, the warm up is here temporarily.
Yeah.
And I was actually wondering with
Our Texas friend Carrie.
no, Carrie, I'm sure it was Two Family.
Two Family, yeah.
I don't know. Two Families further south, they've
Yeah.
probably got pretty good weather too.
Yeah.
Like shorts and t-shirt, getting sunburned.
Yeah. Well, except it was a little cloudy out, but that's it. Well, at least here.
We had some really cool. We didn't get any, but there was some really cool sun pictures.
Yeah.
And sun flares with the super cold, dry air. We got the moon was really good around here. It was totally clear sky and very cold. And then
it's Homestead Dad, I think, had a picture of some sun flares.
I know some people have the sun dog, which
yeah.
I don't fully understand. I understand why, but I don't know why it's called that. It has the reflections off to the side. I guess maybe it's supposed to look like ears. And nose, but it's silly. But we have a local farmer had this really cool peak, the sunrise, and it was just shooting up in this tower of flame as the sun came up.
Yeah.
And he's been a farmer his whole life out on a real flat area, and he was like, I've never seen this
Maybe
before.
It was his picture I'm thinking of.
That was Carlson's.
Yeah.
Naturally, Norm.
And another neighbor who has a farm got a rainbow on a sunny day.
Yeah.
Because of the cold and the ice crystals in the air. It was kind of cool.
Snow in Washington. Yeah, we're going to get more snow. Before the end of the week, we'll have more.
Yeah. We're supposed to have rain.
We're not done.
Rain tomorrow, though. No. Okay.
What else?
We have to go through our Ask the Chef section, right? That's our regular weekly thing now.
What is that?
What is that? That's
what our neighbor gave me.
That is. That, you want to explain what that picture is? What's in that picture?
So talking about a low cash economy, I trade some activities for helping plow out a neighbor, and sometimes there's a little money to put some gas in the tank, and a lot of times he tends to get a bunch of venison, but they don't eat much of it. Like they eat some of the sausage. He likes hunting. And so he gets freezers full and shares it with some friends that they hunt together, and he gets his share. Well, he kind of does some of the ground and the chili and likes the jerky, but he doesn't like or know what to do with the rest. So he gives me stuff, and last year he gave me some of the backstrap, so that's the loin. Well, this year he goes, oh, I got some backstrap. He's like, yeah, that's off. And he goes, here, and I grab a package, and I go, well, that's really nice, because I'm happy with stew meat. If you know how to, because backstrap is very tender. If you want to, it's prized, and if you want to cook that because it's easy to cook, I don't care. You can give me anything, and I'll do whatever I want. It actually isn't. Well, it's part of the backstrap. That's actually the tenderloin. So it said he says backstrap. I thought out. I didn't even look at it. It's like Wednesday night dinner, and I'm like, I've got both tenderloins here. Yeah. I'm like, are you kidding me? I really don't need your tenderloins. So that is 2 tenderloins off the deer. They're like the size of small pork tenderloins, if you want to, they're a medallion. It's about 1.5 inches at the center thickness. So that's a medium-sized deer. And I'm like, all right. So we cooked them up for Wednesday night dinner because they're thawed out, and I knew we were busy the rest of the time.
So what's the best way to cook that? Because I think a lot of people have trouble overcooking it.
Yeah. So the way it looks right now, medium rare to rare, no more than medium because it's super lean. And will dry out, and actually the flavor gets stronger when you overcook it. The flavor is very mild. We have so many cornfields; they're pretty much accidentally corn-fed. Grasses and corn. So my recommendation is liberally season it with salt and pepper. Typically twice as much salt as most people in a restaurant style. Whatever you think is sort of the average amount of salt, unless you've done more stuff, it's probably going to be about twice that to get full flavor and to because some of it falls off. You can't over season it. Pepper, and that's about it. Sometimes there's a little fresh thyme or something. I sear it in a cast iron pan that's smoking hot, not flaming hot, but smoking hot. I just sear it, a 1.5 minutes on each of it's basically going to be 3 sides, the way a tenderloin works out. So you're talking, well, probably 2 minutes. So 6-7 minutes on it. So I sear it just to give it a nice, good crust and flavor. Sometimes, and I sear it in, I think I used a little grapeseed oil, and then I threw some whole butter in at the end and some fresh thyme. And then I pull it out and I let it rest so the juices kind of relaxes, and I slice it. And I really do think tenderloin should be towards the medium rare, even rare, and to eat in the best. But if you like it more well done, cook it a little more well done. Backstrap and tenderloin, yeah, they're kind of so. The sirloin. So in a beef, because it's so large, you cut in quarters. Smaller animals you cut in halves.
Right.
And so you find the value point. So the value point is the center. You've got the legs, and they are whatever they are. But then the high value steak cuts are the ribs, and the rest of the loin at the end, which doesn't have the ribs. So you cut that out as a center. And so you can have that's one way. The other way you can do it on like lamb and things, you'll do a saddle. So a saddle is actually cut all the way across with the rib bones. So it'll have rib bones on both sides. And then you can cut it. So a saddle will have double the chops from the side. So when you order saddles, you got to get your count right. Are you getting racks or saddles? Because the saddle has 2 racks.
Oh yeah.
And because they're expensive, if you're restaurant ordering and you wanted racks and you said saddles or got saddles, all of a sudden you just bought twice what you thought, and that's a big bill if you don't have a way to use it.
But what's the difference between the
the tenderloin sits inside of your main sirloin, the loin portion. And so I always consider the backstrap the loin, and then the tenderloin to be its own piece. Now, if you're cutting chops, rib, you can cut in such a way to get the tenderloin in as a porterhouse, and you can do those really nice T-bone chops and have it all together. But if you do it boneless, I find that you have the loin and then you have the tenderloin. Inside and outside. So the tenderloin is the inside and the loin is the outside. And if you look at a pork roast or pork chop, it's exactly the same. It's just a lot bigger. So you have your loin with the ribs or without the ribs going down. That's your big muscle. And then in a portion in the hi Helix.
You coming up, kitty cat?
In the rib portion, on the inside, you're also going to have the smaller tenderloin. If you cut it right through the middle, you either get a T-bone, and if you have a full, large section of the tenderloin cut through it, then it's typically called a porterhouse. Porterhouse is T-bones. T-bones are not necessarily porterhouses, but porterhouse is always a T-bone because of the size of the fillet in it.
Okay. So
yeah, but they're all in the same area. They all are very tender. Tenderloins are more tender than the backstrap, but a little less flavorful than on venison. They're full flavored because they don't move as much. That makes them more tender, but it makes them a little milder. And so I would prefer the loin over the tenderloin for the flavor.
Okay.
So that's how I work with it. But if you call it tenderloin backstrap, it's so close. I wouldn't. Yeah.
But it was definitely very tasty. So
yeah, sit-ups and back raises. That's about all it does. That's exactly.
There you go. Okay. And we do have an Ask the Chef. So if you guys think of food questions, you could go ahead and.
Oh, and that was with leeks and mushrooms that I had.
That was leeks and mushrooms.
Stupid normal white mushrooms that were discounted at Aldi's, and leeks from a local farm.
Yep.
And a little bit of thyme and butter, salt and pepper. Really, really simple. Don't mess around with it. You don't need to. The flavors are so good. The less you do to it, the better. And I did make some mashed potatoes with that.
Yeah.
Because I had a touch of.
And some spaghetti squash with that. Was that meal or that?
Oh yeah. So I was making spaghetti squash, and I'm like, well, that's a vegetable, but it's really a starch vegetable. I'm like, well, God, when you're doing like rare meat, which we don't do something like that a lot. I don't buy it, and I'm only given something like that very rarely. I'm like, well, I should do some mashed potatoes just because it's fun. And then I'm like, well, I really don't need a starch vegetable and a mashed potato, but what the heck? We'll just.
It was good.
We'll just put them out there and we'll eat the leftovers.
Yes. So I have 2 questions that people have posted, one on a previous video of ours recently and one on Instagram. So I said that we would be covering these topics tonight. But if anybody else has some cooking questions.
I am a huge fan of brisket. In fact, I would say I would put brisket compared to loin, sirloins, loins, all that center cut stuff. If brisket's done properly, I think I'd rather eat the brisket. Yeah. Or at least, it's a toss-up, or I'd rather go for the brisket.
So if you think of questions as we go, we'll cover these 2 questions first. But if you think of anything else, if you put it all in caps, we should be able to catch that. But you just list it. We'll try to catch it.
How many people we got in here with?
About 27.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Yep.
So how many people are watching the Super
26.
Bowl and listening to us?
Yeah. How many people are multitasking tonight?
Don't tell us Super Bowl. They're going to come and get us because they're trying to capitalize. I haven't watched the Super Bowl for about 3 years. I am not a. I
I'm not a
enjoy
fan.
football, but I'm not. I don't follow pro closely at all.
I like
It never
college.
really interested me, and I have been just busy either working most of the time when there's Super Bowl, or I've been busy enough with activities that it's been a lower priority. So
Yeah.
I haven't even seen the Super Bowl in like 3 years.
Why not same weekend as Super Bowl last
No,
year?
it was a month later. It
Oh,
was
okay.
the first weekend in March.
Okay.
We're a full month early.
Okay. So first question, someone was asking on our macaroni and cheese video if he's trying to make 10 pounds of pasta, does that affect the cooking time that you needed?
And that's a really good question. That's a common question or consideration. Um,
And this is for Philip, who
and
I don't.
this works for anything that you're cooking. If the circumference or the density of an item doesn't change, the cooking time should be about the same. So if you get a 10-pound roast and a 1-pound roast, yeah, they're gonna cook different because the heat penetration is slow on a thick item to get to the middle. But if you have many thin items, they're going to cook roughly at the same. So for pasta, effectively, if pasta takes about 10 minutes to cook, plus or minus, yeah, my mom never watches football. Are you kidding me? She's a yeah,
But she's still multitasking.
Soccer family, yeah. Soccer's I like soccer a little bit. I don't get a lot of time to watch it. So
yeah,
cooking pasta generally takes around 10 minutes. If you have a generous amount of water, boiling water, a larger amount of pasta requires a larger amount of water, but the cook time should still be the same. Two things to watch out for is if you're doing it at home and trying to cook a lot, your stovetop may not be able to recover. Even if you get it to a boil, once you cool it with the cold pasta, getting that recover time may take a long time and adversely affect the quality of the cooking. The other thing that happens is once it's done, trying to get it strained and cooled down before it continues to cook. Because if it's all mounded together, it still stays hot. It means it'll continue to cook.
Okay.
And eventually, or pretty quickly, absorbs all the water around it, and then it starts sticking together. So when we're commercially cooking pasta, I'll cook in like a huge kettle, or a tilt brazier, which is a huge, flat top with sides on it. And I might cook 20 or 40 pounds of pasta at a time, like 2 cases, 40 pounds of pasta at a time. And then it's a technique thing. You kind of need to learn it. So 10 pounds is manageable, but if you don't have a good recovery with your stovetop and a big enough pot, do it in a couple batches. Also, generally, so commercially, you take this large amount, you put it in a huge boiling kettle or a large amount of water. Ideally, you have a kettle that tilts, which means it's easier to pour it out and strain it. So you use strainers or really large perforated pans over Lexans, these 20-gallon containers, to catch the water or run it into a drain and then catch your pasta. And you have to do that relatively fast, because if it takes even a minute, which is okay, but you've added a minute of cooking, so that means you need to start your straining when it's earlier. Very, very al dente, undercooked, because it's going to continue while you're processing it. Now, traditionally, people would dump it into cold water, into ice in a Lexan, so they get all the water off most of it off, and then they dump it into a big bath of water. We know that dumping in water takes this external starch that's released off the outside, which means it's harder to, if you want to use that starch in a sauce to reheat it, it's harder to get the starch back. So ideally, you want to get them onto sheet pans where it will first, in the air, steam out, and the temperature will come down. So you can oil it a little bit so it doesn't stick. Just a little. Don't use really good olive oil. Cheap vegetable oil, whatever you're comfortable with or you have. And then you let it steam out, and then you get it into a refrigerator or a cooler where you can finish bringing it down. Once it's cooled in temperature, you can knock it off that pan into a bin to hold it. Hard part is we don't have the cooling power or the space in a refrigerator necessarily to do all that, so you may need to rinse it or ice it. And frankly, if you're going to dip it back in water to reheat it, the whole starching thing isn't a big deal. It's if you're going to take it directly from blanched or like half cooked and put it into your sauce at that point, that's where you don't want to rinse it. So that's your ideal world. So when I did it at like hotels and I would have to do 100 pounds of pasta, I would do say 40 or 50 pound batches. I would have rapidly boiling water, heavily salted. I would actually add oil, which doesn't make the best pasta. I would add oil when I'm doing like spaghetti or something that's really hard to get it to hold out. So I would hold it very high and let it drop in, try and space it out. It goes through the oil, which lubricates a little bit. It resists taking on the water as fast, which is bad. But when you're doing that much pasta, I sacrifice getting the pasta in a usable condition. I cook it about 8 minutes. I shut off my kettle, and actually I had a setup. So if I couldn't strain it on my kettle, I would take 20 gallons of ice, and as I dumped all my hot water out, I would start turning cold water on, pouring it in. I would dump ice in. I knew how much ice it took, swirling it around with a big paddle to bring it down chilled. As soon as it chilled, I would dump it all out, the water out, and then I would start scooping pasta. And when you need a big ladle, use a small pan. The biggest pan you can handle as a ladle. And I'd start scooping pasta out as fast as I can, because if you're using a kettle, it uses steam around the outside to heat it, and that continues to stay hot. So if I don't get the pasta out quick, the sides heat back up and it starts sticking, and then you go cool it down. So it's a logistics process when you do volume, but I would say it's 10 pounds is very achievable. Cook time, about the same. Maybe cut it by a minute to save you a little room. So not all square T-bones are porterhouse rectangles. Yeah, that's pretty much true. That's the right way.
Do you butter baste your red meat cuts?
I think that basting, so if you're doing a full steak, basting with whatever fat, whether you're using its own fat, you're using vegetable oil, bacon fat, lard, whatever it is. Flavorful fats are better than unflavorful fats, but all fats are generally helpful. Basting or pauling, where you take the hot fat and you throw it over the top of a small one, is the most preferred technique, sort of French technique. And I do think that finishing with a little bit of butter or browning butter, you don't want to use whole butter at the beginning because it will burn, but throwing it at the end as the pan cools down a little bit and where you can control that it browns is good. The other thing you can do is after you've rested your meat. So in a restaurant, you bring it to rare, and then you usually rest it, and then you might finish it a little bit to bring it up a temperature for serving. But brushing it with whole butter, brushing it with, say, rendered aged fat that's a little funky and is common, like your trimmings that you wouldn't eat. I don't know if the health department likes it, but that is a common place in a fine steakhouse. Take your rendered funky trimmings, boil them down, and get some of that fat and baste it over the top. Or if you have a place, let's say like I think that what's the steakhouse? Ruth Chris and places like that. So they have extremely hot broilers to finish to help crust it, get the crust and get the coloration and the flavor. A lot of times, I believe they take whole butter, and a lot of times you take a big spoonful of whole butter if you have a broiler, a really hot broiler. You'd be surprised how much butter it is. It could be like an ounce or two. And they'll throw that on the top cold, throw it into the broiler, and they let it coat down over the meat, and it actually browns the butter and it glazes the meat. And so I do think finishing that way does give you your best restaurant finish. Also re-seasoning, so re-hitting it with a little bit of salt, because you lose some of the salt and the juices. So
into the pan. Fresh
whole butter, salt when it's in the broiler in the pan, sometimes a little bit of thyme, like you put a fresh sprig of thyme, so you permeate that, and then it goes, a drop of red wine vinegar or a drop of Worcestershire sauce works nice. We used to start some steaks in one place where we'd actually have vegetable oil and some Worcestershire sauce, and it was kind of broken, and we would just dab it in there, not a lot, just so you don't really notice it before it hit the grill. So all of those techniques build your your free aminos, and your aminos are the things that under super high heat, your 400, 500, 600 degree heat, convert into those super savory flavors. Worcestershire sauce, soy sauce, whole butter.
And there's a second part to
yeah,
that.
They do amazingly nice things to finish really good meat. I like cast iron a lot. It holds the heat like a sponge. I really enjoy that. That's my preferred at home. It also allows you, if you don't have a lot of heat potential at home, as long as the smoke alarm doesn't go off too much, you can rest it there for a while. Pay attention. It can get too hot, or it can appear not hot. You put oil in it, it flames up right away. And if you're not ready to handle that, that's not good. But if you're low on heat, like I had an apartment stove, I couldn't get any heat out of it. That was the only way to get enough heat to get a sear. I also like stainless. You know, a good quality thick stainless. Stainless is much more expensive, and I think you get as good of a result with cast iron, which isn't very pricey. Ceramic, I'm not a big fan of ceramic and nonstick. I don't like the crust that it provides. Ceramic is fine. Nonstick should not be used on high heat situations where you're getting that 600-degree range. That's where they mean it's hard on the coating, but that's also where it starts to give off gas off some of the potentially not healthy items. And copper is also phenomenal for the heat transfer. Classic things are done with thick copper, but a thick copper pan new will cost you like $400-500.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some Canadian copper that's $1,000 for a set of 3. So it's way out of budget, but it performs great. Tinned copper. Don't mistake that for the stuff you might find at like your discount.
Copper coated things.
It's very thin copper with a copper coat or a copper looking. If it's not tinned on the inside, because copper sheds off and can be toxic, it needs to be tinned and keep low acid things. But if it isn't thick, it's a showpiece to be put on your wall, and it's a knockoff to look nice, but it doesn't cook very well. And you can find some of those things at what are some of the discount stores that have the kitchen stuff and like the discount clothes and
like TJ Maxx.
Like TJ Maxx and stuff, Home Goods. Watch out. Sometimes you can get a pretty good deal. None of it's phenomenal, but you can get a real nice buy on some of that stuff, and sometimes it's junk. A lot of the copper stuff is total junk. But do look around. I've picked up some amazing stuff. People didn't know what it was. And in fact, the nicer it is, the less people know what it is, and you can walk away with it. So copper is impractical. And the one last thing I would say, my go-to aside from cast iron is something called blue steel, or it's a thin steel. A lot of times you'll see the French crepe pans, or people call it French steel.
Oh, yeah.
So it's much thinner than your 1/4-inch thick American cast iron. It's a smoother steel, and it does have a bluish hue to it. It does need to be treated just like cast iron, where you're gonna season it. You're gonna keep the water from sitting on it, and it responds to heat very quickly. So it's more sensitive like copper, but it gives really good fast heat control and searing. And they're much cheaper than steel, than stainless or copper. So if you want to get serious, and they're like $25-30 a piece compared to all clad or something that might be a large saute might be approaching $100 at retail. So if you want to buy some new stuff, cast iron and the blue steel French pans are my go-to for value and excellent performance.
Would it be, I think this goes back to the pasta, would it be better to split the pasta into 3 pots, like if you're doing 10-pound batch?
Potentially. So if you can't keep up the heat on your stove, if it doesn't recover within, say, like a minute of your cooking time back to a simmer at least, if you are concerned about handling it, like being able to lift it carefully, safely, like strength, being able to get it over a sink or wherever you're dumping it, yes, for safety and all of the above, doing 3 batches or 3 different pots where you time them and stage them out so you're not so rushed, that's a really good move. And the other thing that I like to do, that's another value thing, what we call candy stoves, which is your propane burner that sometimes people do lobster pots or your turkey fryer that are very inexpensive, like $30 or $40. Mm-hmm. You can use those. Be careful on how thin the pan is for frying, because they can kind of get crazy. But for making pasta, making stock, chicken stock, bone, especially when you do beef or veal where you need a lot of bones, you get a lot more firepower. You get lots of BTUs, more than you can do in your home, unless you have a really nice stove. I don't at home. I just have a normal stove like everybody else. So you can do that out in your yard safely. You can get a lot of firepower. You can boil a large volume of water. So we scald our chickens. I've made stock in it. You got to be careful on thick soups and tomato sauce. I would not recommend it, because unless you have a really good thick steel pan, you're going to end up burning the bottom. But when you have a lot of liquid in it, and so you can cook pasta, fire that thing up. Propane's pretty cheap to run for a short period of time, and so that is a value way when you need to batch cook or cater cook something, and you can't do it in the house easily. Do it on the porch or in the yard.
Thanks, Kalamazoo Permaculture, by the way. Better than watching PBS cooks.
Yeah, there's some good PBS stuff.
Evolution of a Homestead posted a question on one of our links. It may have actually been the venison. I'm not sure. I forget
I
now.
like the sage brown butter and pumpkin ravioli. Yeah, that's good.
Yes, that's good.
That's a favorite.
But you have a question from Instagram from Evolution of a Homestead, which has a YouTube channel as well. She was having, she wanted, or she wanted to know, or she wanted more videos on meat, how to cook meat that you could raise on property. But her main issue at the moment was how do you render the duck skin so that it's not rubbery. She was having trouble getting.
So we did a goose video, a Thanksgiving goose video, and duck and goose can be cooked equivalently.
A year ago.
Yeah, although goose Thanksgiving a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
Goose is larger, so it's going to take a little longer. Real quick, going back to the cast iron, yes, garage sales are an awesome buy where you can get them for $5, $3. They can be in really, really beat up condition, rusty. Generally, it's okay. Two things you can do to it: get them really hot, put some oil in it, and salt. Grind it out with salt, coarse salt, and then you can use some oil. Make sure it doesn't flame up. Grind it out really good. If there's deep pits, you can actually grind it with a grinder or like a sand. You can sand it down, and so you can recover almost all pans. There's a guy at a local flea market, gets them all over the place for nothing. He grinds them down. He seasons them up in a really hot oven. He bakes on the oil, which is the last step, and he resells them. Not new expensive, but pretty expensive, and he makes good money on them. And he has some really nice old thick stuff that people really want. So you can recover almost any of your pans doing that. The other thing is, if you grind them down carefully with a fine grit, you can get and then seal the pores. You can get them so smooth that you can actually cook eggs and make them non-stick. So it's a misnomer that a well-seasoned cast iron, you can't cook eggs. If you season it right, but if you do this grind down method and you treat it well, and there's videos online, people doing it, you can get an amazing result. Ross's and Marshall's good buys, but there's more and more crap. It used to be better, and there's more useless junk in there and pans that are not good quality. So
rubbery
duck and chicken, So rubbery duck and chicken skin, or unrendered where it's fatty and thick but not crispy, usually means that you have not taken out a lot of the moisture, so it's gotten steamy. We have two, and so going back, fundamentally you cook in two ways. You evaluate a cut if it's tender. You want to cook it fast and dry heat, meaning grill, saute, pan sear, roast. You're putting it in an oven, on a stovetop, on a barbecue. If it's tough, you want moist heat. Moist heat is going to break down the collagen. The stuff we think is tough, but after a couple of hours will become tender and give you really great product. But it needs the interaction with water, so that means you're either braising, you're covering it halfway with water, you're stewing, it's in chunks, it's fully covered, you're steaming, you're doing methods where there's liquid and usually more time involved. So you can evaluate tough or tender, and you can right away say, I'm going to do it dry and get flavor and browning and cook it quickly, or I'm going to go slow and use liquid of some sort to make it tender. So when you're roasting a duck or a goose, roasting better be dry. And so we have a rule: once you've made a decision, so the chefs say, how do you phrase it? None should ever cross, basically. Once you make that decision, don't change in the middle, because you're going to ruin it. You're going to toughen things up. Your tough will never go tender. Your crispy will get tough, and skin will get nasty and rubbery. So you can do raise the heat. You either give it more time or raise the heat, even if it's at the end, to get it brown and crispy. Once you get the moisture out, you'll start frying on the outside. The oil will start to fry, and it will render out. As it liquefies, it will release, and it will go into the pan. So given enough time, as long too hot it'll burn, but given enough time, chicken is important, but then duck and goose is really thick because they're cold weather. You need that fat to come out, sort of like bacon and everything else. So I would adjust the heat. Duck and goose, typically when they're roasted whole or cooked all the way well done. When you just do the breast, you can do rare, medium rare. That's different. But whole, you're going to cook it all the way through, because by the time the legs are tender enough to eat, it's going to be cooked. So I usually do duck, I think 375, and goose is more like 350. But a duck can go 2 hours. A commercial convection oven, I go like an hour and 40 minutes. But at home, it's like 2 hours. I wiggle the legs, and when the legs start to feel a little bit loose, or you can twist the bone out, it's done. And if it's not as golden as you want, just turn the heat up for 10 minutes. Not necessarily broiler, but set it up to 450 or 475 and let it brown out. Or even take the bones out, and then when you get ready to serve it, you can do that. That's how we do it in the restaurants. Goose, because it's larger, you're going to run a little lower temperature. You might run 2.5, 3 hours on it to get it tender. Other things you can do, so that's just a straight simple method, roasting it like a chicken. You can poke holes with like needles to help render it out. When you make Asian style goose and duck, like Peking or Beijing style, it goes through a multi-step process. So you go through a brining, you go through a blanching. So you take boiled water and you go through a dipping method. And what that does is it firms the skin up. It starts to release the oil, but it firms the skin. And then that firm skin is how you get, and then you paint it with a shellac. And so that's got a soy sauce and other flavors and color, natural coloring ingredients to get that lacquered look for the lacquered or Beijing style duck. But the first step is to steam or dip it, and then you lacquer it, and then you roast it. So it's a 3-part because you're really focusing on crispy skin. And you need to get the fat layer underneath to come out of it, otherwise it's chewy and gross. Now, when you're doing a duck breast or a goose breast, and it's taken off of the frame, you can score it. So instead of pricking holes or going through a steaming blanching to begin, you can score it with a crosshatch or just lines in it. And what that's going to do, and you only score through the skin, leaving the fat. Yeah.
Okay, Christina, you can always go back and watch the second half of the show if you need to take notes later.
Yeah, I guess there's replay, and then you can look at some of the duck stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you're searing duck breast, if you score it because it's going to cook less time, that helps purge out the fat and let it escape easier. I use a cast iron pan, not on hot. I start it on just warm, and then I turn the heat up so it has time where it takes the fat all the way down so that it's shrunk down by, say, 2/3, and I've got a crispy skin and brown, and I spend most of the time focusing on doing that.
And that is my favorite part of the duck is the skin.
And if you're rendering skin down, you just barely coat the pan, and you don't put oil in. You just put a little bit of oil in so it doesn't stick. And as excess water and oil come off and it starts filling the pan, tilt it to the side and pull it off, because if it starts frying in it, it will crisp around the edges. It won't work well. You want to keep it shedding off, and you're going to take 5, 6, almost 10 minutes in that rendering process to get that excess fat out. And you can save the fat. It will not be clarified. It'll be roasty, but it's great for doing potatoes and flavorful things. Hold on to it and use it like bacon fat. It's not smoky, but it's just like doing bacon fat.
It's good.
And then I only flip the breast over the meat side. Once I've got that nice rendered brown finished skin, I only flip it over, and the pan's hot at that point. I just brown the outside enough to bring it to rare or medium rare. And in a restaurant situation, I do all the browning of the breast and the skin side down in advance during the day, or sometimes the day before for a party, where I have time to focus on it and I can make sure it's done well. And I'll do 40 breasts in a big brazier all at one time, but I'll manipulate that carefully and I'll watch it and I'll get it just right. I won't even cook the meat side, and then I'll chill it down. And when I get ready to, or maybe I'll just touch it so it doesn't stick on the meat side. When I get ready to prepare it for a la carte in a restaurant, I'll re-warm it up, the skin side, just to re-crisp it, and then I'll cook the meat side. And when I do it for a banquet, I just take the skin side up and I throw them on sheet pans, put them in an oven, and I cook them all off in a hot oven just to bring the meat temperature up. And that's it. Oh, Patriots won again. Well, we're big Michigan fans, and Tom Brady was quarterback for Michigan, so there's
okay.
I know he's a controversial guy in a lot of ways, but I guess there's a little there's a little Michigan pride in that when the Patriots and they win. So
yeah,
I don't have a big favorite on it, but
good
to know.
We're gonna go back. I did want to point out.
So duck and goose cooking, it's not the scariest thing in the world. Roasted is not that hard. It is tremendously good.
Duck do have dark meat.
Duck is so it's almost all dark meat, and the it's not strong, but it's a little more minerally and irony from all the grass that they eat.
Yeah.
And
he said he likes, or she said she
yeah,
likes dark meat.
yeah.
And
Consider it like eating other red meat animals, not poultry. It's much
Yeah.
more like that, and you can eat it rare and medium rare because it doesn't have the salmonella issues.
I'm gonna go back to Stringfield Ridge Farm. What's your favorite steak? I don't eat a lot of steak.
I don't eat a tremendous amount of steak. I've been in lots of restaurants where we cooked all kinds of great steak, all the different cuts. I would say for real steak eaters, ribeye, many times ribeye, which can also include T-bones and porterhouses, are all from the same cut area. That's probably the steak eater's steak because of the fattiness of the ribeye. And so, and second to that would be the sirloin. It's a little less fatty. Those are kind of steak eater steaks. The tenderloin or filet mignon is so soft and tender, but isn't extremely flavorful. It doesn't have enough fat and marble in it. Most steak eaters are not big tenderloin fans. It is rare, it's expensive, and so it's sort of the luxury item. So there is no right answer to that. You eat what you like. But I would say for people that are really into steak, they're going to be either a porterhouse or a sirloin. I like a grilled steak. I like probably a pan-seared steak slightly better. A really good roast that's sliced is just as good. I like I like skirt steak a lot, but it's a little different. Hanger steak's really good. I probably like hanger steak better than skirt steak.
Filet mignon.
Yeah, and I would say yeah. So I'm not gonna. There is no right question, fillet or ribeye. What I don't like, I like my steaks towards the rare end. I do not like a rare ribeye because it's so fatty and so soft. And the muscle groups. I find that I'll eat a rare sirloin or a rare fillet, but I find a rare ribeye is too rare unless it's like an overnight roasted. If it's overnight roasted ribeye, it's different. I like a medium rare because I find it like when it's this big, a rare ribeye is like eating a chunk of raw meat and it's a little harder to eat. So I bump the temperature up half a temperature or one temperature personally, and I think it eats better that way.
Do you ever cook on induction, and what do you think?
Yeah, I have an induction burner. I've used quite a bit of induction. I like it. Well, I like a bunch of things for it. It takes a lot of power, so you can even on a 20 amp circuit on a commercial induction burner, you can only put one burner on an outlet. So even in a lot of commercial buildings, you need to be careful. And if you're in I've been in some historic buildings, we couldn't run induction because we were concerned of frying the wires, and they were inaccessible or they might catch on fire and burn the building down. So if you have the power outlets, they're great. Things I like are no open flame, so they're very safe for dining room cooking. They heat up instantly because it's magnetic heating. They cool down almost instantly. The glass plate on top can stay hot only if the pan has kind of created some heat on it. So they have the precision of having a gas flame, but they have the safety of electric. You do need to have a cast iron or steel pan, a magnetized pan. Aluminum and unmagnetized alloys will not work. But I am generally very comfortable cooking on induction. There are home induction units. They're more expensive. You don't want to break them. I don't know if it's worth it for home. I have a glass top electric right now. I don't like glass. I do not like electric. I would prefer gas because the problem with electric is it takes a long time to heat up and then it takes a reasonably long time to cool down. If you get a boil over, sure, you don't get a flare up, you don't get a fire issue, but I'm pretty comfortable putting out a little flare up. You don't have the precision. So both induction and gas have that flame on, flame off. And if I feel like things are cooking too fast or too hot, I just shut it off and they'll quickly cool down. Whereas electric, you have to pick it up and move it off of the burner. And I just don't find the responsiveness or sometimes the heat output. So yeah, induction is a good option, but I don't find it overwhelmingly essential, especially to put it in at home.
Okay. So I was just trying to see. I'm scanning through the comments to see if there's anything else we missed there, but I don't see questions listed in there. With all the homesteads on YouTube getting
Quail
quail.
has gone crazy, hasn't it, recently? People are really...
Yeah, do some quail dishes.
I like quail.
We don't have quail, but we could probably find someone who
Yeah,
does.
I'm trying to think of the farmer's market if anybody has quail right now. I can buy commercial quail pretty easily. So I have been a big fan of cooking quail since culinary school. I've used it at a bunch of restaurants.
It could be interesting to set up a summer quail project. I wouldn't do them year round.
What's nice about quail is they're, even the large ones, the commercial large ones, they're a great single bird appetizer. As an entree, it's kind of weird because you need like two, at least two. And trying to put two birds on a plate just looks clunky. So that's where you a lot of times want to move to a squab. Squab is a fancy word for a pigeon. All right, French pigeon. It's a domesticated pigeon, not the nasty things that fly around town. And they're actually a lot of fun. A Cornish game hen actually is not anything special. It's a very young, small chicken, just so you know that. They're great to work with. And in the South, when I lived in Memphis, barbecued game hen was the preferred, and that's a great individual item. And because of the size, it cooks and smokes out nice. So playing with game hen is a lot of fun. But yeah, quail I typically brine for half a day or a day. And you can stuff and roast them. You can, spatchcock them or split them and grill them. They cook very quick. They, at best I know, do not have the salmonella issues, so you can undercook them slightly also. In fact, they're pretty nice.
And that's true for duck and goose as well.
Health department says cook them fully like all meat. But the reality of it is restaurants do undercook those items, and they're generally, in practical terms, with a little, your typical risk of eggs and other undercooked things are generally safe. Quail, you can stuff them, you can split them, you can serve them cut into 4 pieces, or just serve the back legs.
I'm getting hungry.
And then you can make sauce. Fancy restaurants will just serve the back legs, and then they'll make sauce out of the front legs. People do that with rabbit too. They'll serve the back legs and the loins, and then they actually take the front legs and they roast them down and make the sauce. So that's, I do think they're a fun appetizer item. They grill up beautiful. I do things like cinnamon brines, spice brines, Southwest like seasoning blends and things. So good summer barbecue. Started out, I don't think they're so filling. You got to eat a lot. You can do a quick little fried cornbread stuffed maple brine. So really good way to start a barbecue or a dinner. And they're not scary to eat and flavor, so you can impress people with that. And they're a little more expensive than chicken, but they're not crazy.
So it said there was another question. I don't have
and you can buy them glove bone. That's the other thing. So there's something, glove bone means you just have the 2 leg bones and the 2 arm, the 2 wing bones. And you've taken out the rib cage and all the rest. Okay. So glove bone, and you can do this with any poultry. You carefully go around with a knife and you take out the frame. You glove it, or you're turning a glove inside out. You discard those bones or make sauce with them, and then and so now you have a semi-boneless that you can pick up, and you don't have any rib bones or things in the way. When you're stuffing it now, you can cut straight through it. So you can practice doing that on a chicken. Quail's so small, you use a knife, you go notch, 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 notch.
How many legs do your quail have?
Yeah, I know. I was thinking about that. I was talking about front legs, back legs. I'm like, yeah, they actually have wings.
Wings.
Yeah, they got 2 legs. Unless you're making a turquoilan, and then they've got like 6 or 8 legs. They have the old.
Oh gosh, the stuff this in the next one, and the next one. Yeah.
So glove boning is a really nice way on the small birds to present them and keep the skin on and all that. You can buy them glove boned or it's called semi-boneless. They're in trays, and they're usually frozen, but sometimes fresh. You can commercially buy them mechanically deboned, and it cuts that skill out.
Candace, if that was a question from you, if you could repeat it, or if you know what the question was.
We don't have a timestamp on it. You can turn a timestamp on.
We don't.
You just don't have your timestamp on.
No, we can't turn the timestamp on.
You can't?
No. So I don't have timestamps on here.
It isn't up over there?
No, it isn't. No.
Toggle timestamps.
Oh.
Yeah, you just have them off.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
I know they're there.
I'm like, I hadn't played with that feature.
8:55.
I actually like 8:45.
8:45.
Which is
so
not going back.
which is 9:45 because you're probably in a different time zone.
But I can't go past 9:50 right now, so I can only go
yeah,
back.
just give us a question. We'll see if we can handle it.
Turquoise.
Yeah, Turquoise. Yeah, dude.
Okay. Hi, Bandana.
Bunny. We have some friends that do bunnies for dog food. They're actually really good eating. Personally, they're a nice, super lean, moderately flavored, but so yeah, they have the efficiency of chicken as we've talked about, and they're the ease. People say are a little more efficient, a little easier to handle.
Yeah.
They grow under similar conditions.
And their poop isn't hot.
Yeah, great fertilizer.
You can
great
use them
composter.
straight on the garden. So
and they're pretty tasty. So that's a great backyard, and they don't make noise, so that's a good backyard project.
Yeah, it's probably a good neighborhood backyard project as long as you don't have neighbors who know you're raising them for meat who have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But
it's sort of their problem, but I understand it. But
yeah.
Yeah, and I do know people that grind them for dog food, so that's a great option for lean protein or self-raised protein.
Yeah, the one thing I hesitate on the dog food as far as preparing my own dog food is they do need some fruits and vegetables, so making sure that they get the right balance, and I haven't researched that, so we don't do that. Although I give Puddin' and we gave our other dogs some,
We give them high quality food, but we don't do grain free and we don't do raw. I'm always concerned about the
safety. I think the kind we get is grain free.
Actually, that may be great. Well, it has no corn or soy. I'm not sure it's grain free, but it doesn't have any of your. Yeah. And I'm always a little concerned about. I know that dogs, especially, and cats, can handle different bacteria better, and some of the Salmonella and E. coli. But I'm still not concerned that our commercially raised stuff is necessarily fully safe. Plus, if you're handling a lot of raw food, the chance of you handling it or having it in the bowls, unless they eat outside and rapidly, we don't have them on that type of scale. I'm concerned about having that raw food hanging out, and that it's the safety aspects of that more so than the quality of feed.
And that's the other thing.
So we don't do raw.
That is the other thing. With giant dogs, they are grazers. They don't eat all their food in one sitting. They eat it through the day. So having any of the food sit out, you would have potential contamination issues. And their stomachs, well, I won't even say they're always stronger than ours. Great Danes are have issues with GIs.
They tend to be a little weaker stomach. So I don't, we're not experts on that, but we do shy away, and we do not. I know people do whole necks and grind.
Yeah.
And carcass. I'm also a little concerned about damaging their stomach, and I don't want to take that risk. So we have not done
like sharp bones damaging your stomach.
So I know some of that stuff. Like you can chew up neck bones because they're pretty soft and they're not sharp.
Yeah.
But so that whole carcass, we're just a little concerned. We don't want to have a medical issue. And then what was the grouse and pheasant.
Yeah.
I have never had wild pheasant. I have had domestic raised pheasant 2 or 3 times. I've prepared it a few times, but wild's totally different. I've had very limited wild birds. I know that's also different. I've never had wild turkey. I'd love to try that. Grouse I have never had. So if somebody's in the area and figure out how to do some, I would love to either learn from you or try and work with it. I like games, so that would be a lot of fun, but I just haven't had access to those items.
Dane's allergic to chicken products. Huh. I wonder if he's allergic to home-raised chicken or just the chicken in the dog food.
Yeah.
You
got to do lamb or fish or beef or something.
Yeah, there are a lot of allergy issues with Danes. They are probably too. They were too inbred.
They're sensitive. Their GIs are commonly more sensitive than some.
Yeah. And one of your dogs refuses to eat rabbits. I'm sure Puddin' would love to eat rabbits.
Oh, rabbit! Pudding would eat a rabbit.
At least she would love to catch one. She's definitely interested in that.
Raw diet goes either well or really bad. Yeah, that's sort of my concern, and we don't have a need to figure it out because we had even our Dane that had a really sensitive stomach. We did rice and brown rice. That was okay, but not great. We found that sweet potato.
Yeah.
We would microwave and give a quarter to a half a sweet potato.
Yeah.
Sometimes a little rice. When his stomach got really bad or he wasn't feeling well, we'd put a little rice and cooked ground meat.
We would put
and then we started doing chicken. So I would buy commercially or when it went really cheap, I'd buy the chicken leg thigh quarters, the monster nasty ones. And we would actually boil them, and then we would pull the meat. We didn't want to put too much skin and fat because that would lead to diarrhea, and we didn't want the bones because we were concerned. So we would actually pull the meat and just put a handful of meat, like a quarter to a half of a piece of like a thigh or leg in there, chopped up, and then we'd supplement with the sweet potato and then with a high quality kibble. And that worked very well to getting him to
GI issue settled.
Yeah, getting his nutrition and his GI to do what it was supposed to.
Yeah.
And when it got really bad, that's when we started adding a little bit of rice, or even a little ground cooked meat to really get him straightened out.
Okay. Bought a 60-quart bio boil pot.
Yeah.
They asked if I was having a seafood boil. I said no, it's for my meat birds, so they're easier to pluck.
Yeah, so I have
them.
some 5 and 6 gallon pots that I originally bought for beer brewing, and I've been too busy to brew beer for 5 years.
You would have thought that I was cooking their chihuahua. Oh, people are so silly. Where do they think chicken come from?
I know.
I'm guessing they eat chicken.
So I have a 5 gallon medium thick aluminum pot I bought, which really came in handy. And then I have about a 6 gallon steel pot, but it's really thin and it burnt. I mean, if you're not boiling something in it, don't cook anything thick because it'll even something that's starch thick and it'll burn. So I had those two for doing beer, and they were not super high quality, but they're average quality. We started using them for blanching, and for feathering our chickens, because that's the largest pot I had, and using a burner, candy stove burner, and that's pretty effective, but a little bit small, even for doing a dozen chickens or so. I just this week got in a 100-quart pot, aluminum. It's a 1/4 inch thick, standard aluminum. It's not the extra thick. This is a good question. What do you think I paid for it? Because pots can get really expensive.
And 60-quart?
No, 100-quart.
100-quart.
So it makes it sound really 60-quart, 100-quart. Well, divide by 4 and you get your gallons. So it's a 25-gallon pot.
Okay. Yep.
Now you can get 160-gallon. Those tend to be your stock pots. So the problem was my 2 pots, if you watch some of the Rhodes videos where we were boiling stock, I brought them, threw them on candy stoves at the Rhodes to do their beef bones. And we had a lot of beef bones. We did because I was showing them how to do stock and roasted stock, and that's about as small as you can do beef bones, and they were really overloaded. I'm like, man, I really wish I had a bigger pot. Yeah. So I ended up finding these 100-quart pot that I had my eye on. Came in the mail after all the snow came in on Friday, and it's thicker than I thought, and so that's may go back down to the Rhodes for pork, but I really need it for beef. That's where you need. I find that beef bones, the volume, if you don't have the volume,
$80 guessing low.
Stock doesn't cook out as nice if it's under. Yeah, $80 to $100 is what I would have expected. It was $67. That's why I bought it. So I need it to do things for the road, so when we're doing hogs, we need to skin and scald. I'm going to create a mobile kitchen. So that means we need pot washing water, one for safety and sanitation, but also for when you're working with greasy things, you need hot water to just liberate the grease in the cold weather. So we need to be able to have an excess of water boiling. And so we will use it for a variety of things. You paid 20, and how big a pot was it? 25 for a 50-quart?
No, it was on clearance for 50. They offered 25,
and it was what size? That's really whatever size it was. That's really good.
That was the 60-quart one.
That's aluminum or steel, and how there's different whatever it is, regardless of being
Kathleen Dogsbury bones so they can ferment them.
Maybe.
Maybe. Sometimes they lose them.
Yeah.
There are some.
Well, if you find large pots, what you have to watch is some of the aluminum is so thin. And steel, while I prefer steel for performance, unless you're buying a thick, like 1/8 inch or thicker steel, it'll burn on the bottom, or sometimes they have a thick plate on the bottom, and you're talking $400 for a good steel pot.
Yikes.
So they're not affordable.
No.
Even only the best restaurants buy steel pots. Most restaurants are all aluminum, and I'm not too concerned about boiling in aluminum because it tends to pick up the minerals from the water, and in the oxide, and it kind of creates a coating. So I'm not real concerned about aluminum issues getting in it, especially when you're boiling. So yeah, if you want to know, Webstront, which is a massive clearinghouse of stuff.
We do not have an affiliate.
I've got no affiliate. I don't even know if they're a good business. I just know they're the cheapest one out there on some things, and they're like a commercial. What the little guys used to do in town, and sometimes way overcharged you, they kind of beat them at that game because they were taking advantage of people. So Webstront has a number of pots. I can't vouch for the quality on a lot of their stuff unless I look at it, but they have a 100-quart aluminum standard quality for $67. I had a few other things coming in, so they'll get you on a lot of shipping. Watch the shipping close.
Oh, Tina got it at Lowe's. Lowe's.
Yeah.
They make crazy deals if it's on clearance. They want to get
it out. They can. So you did really well. The turkey pots. Watch the turkey pots. They're a little bit thin, especially for frying. Be careful on frying on the thin pans. They don't get a hot spot and break open. Don't worry if it's water. It's a mess. It's dangerous. But if fry oil pot breaks open, you're in trouble. You got a fire. So yeah.
So
can you you said a cheap pot on it? Yes, that is one method, is getting a thick slab of steel, a cheap like leftover steel, or a cast iron, and using that as a buffer to disperse your flame. It may still get awfully hot and burn if you have tomatoes or roux, but for like cooking beer that's got a starch substance and kind of sugary, that's a good. Yeah, creating a heat diffuser plate is an excellent idea to get you into using a cheap pan and getting around the downfalls of a thin, cheaper pan.
I was teasing him that maybe we can use the tawa as a buffer, because a tawa is a flat.
That's a 1/8 inch or thicker steel.
Yeah, it's not that thick.
Yeah, I've used it as for that purpose.
It's a flat piece of
for cooking cooking flatbreads.
Yeah, we're cooking flatbreads that we picked up when in Trinidad. So
you can get. So yes, that is. And a stone might work, but a stone would probably crack from the heat distribution. But getting scrap steel or diffusers is really good. The other thing you can do on these really big pots, if you have gas, sometimes the gas flame doesn't get enough airflow, and you'll start getting the black marks from the carbon, and that can be dangerous. So you can take tin foil and you wad up tin foil and you raise it up around your burners. And that's your quick solution for running a pot that's too big and still being able to get your burner to work.
Second Half Home said that is hilarious. And our geese do the same thing with things that they find in their environment and putting it in the water dishes. First time I noticed that happen, by the way, was I think it was Lucky who found
everything in the water.
Yeah, they do. Anything. I found pieces of bread or anything. But the first time I noticed that happen, it was actually a little red wiffle ball that that the roads left behind. It was back in our field area.
Dog didn't want to play with it.
Didn't want to play with it. The goose found it and put it in his pool. We have baby pools for them, so that was just way too funny. What was the company's name?
Yeah, again? Cooking on galvanized is not good. Webstront. So it's like webrestaurant.com, webstront.com. It's a massive website.
I'll see if I can.
It's generally commercial stuff. If you don't have at least $200 of stuff coming in, they get you really heavily. There's on free shipping. If you're bringing in $200 or $300 worth of stuff, the shipping all of a sudden starts quickly going down. And if you're buying something big like a pot, because of the size, they can get you for a lot of shipping. So they have all kinds of kitchen equipment, gloves. It's pretty vast. And I can't vouch for quality on everything, but most of their prices are pretty good. They have some grinders. We bought, I think the Rhodes' grinder came from Webstront. It was $100 cheaper than anybody else had that same grinder, and it's a really nice grinder.
Here you go.
Yeah, that's Webstront store. Yeah, that's fine.
I'm just gonna take this part off.
Yeah. So
see if this link works.
Poke around, no guarantees. Do cross-check the quality, cross-check the brand, cross-check the price. But if those things all work out, they are a good professional, semi-professional source. They don't have homestead equipment, but they have kitchen equipment.
Yeah. See if that link works. If it doesn't, let me know. I did cut off the end of it because it automatically added like a whole bunch on the end. So
yeah.
But yeah, that was the store.
Overripe mangoes. Yeah. Yeah.
Kept finding the pits. Yeah, we'll find avocado pits. We'll find slices of bread that we gave them, like our old bread we give them. The geese will take it and put it in the water. Everything goes
Oh
in the
yeah, the
water.
Bayou Classic pot and strainer. Yeah, I know what that is. So that's awfully thin. It's for a lobster pot, and I think it may be for turkey frying. It will burn things easily, so it's excellent for boiling and making stocks, for blanching your chickens if you're doing chickens and feathering them. It's good for making like dumplings and noodles, but if you can keep liquid on the bottom, that's where it's gonna perform best. So it's a good tool. It's not a perfect tool, but under the right use, it's the right item for the money for sure. Yeah, I'm very familiar with that unit. Oh yeah, so galvanized. There isn't a lot of galvanized out there. There's some show stuff. You're seeing galvanized being trendy for like holding. So galvanized, the galvanization process can have, is it nickel and lead? It has some metals that are in there that are mixed together, and they will leach out. They are not appropriate for eating, scraping them, boiling water, eating out of them. Now, if you want to do an ice bath and hold like soda or beer cans in it and things like that, that's great. It's perfect. But they are not good tools for cooking. And anything where the copper starts showing, generally that is not good. Aluminum, some people don't like the aluminum. I don't think the risk is real high on that. I'll tell you, almost all restaurants, all they buy is aluminum sautés and they scrape because they're so cheap. It's the zinc,
Yeah.
yes. And we need very small amounts of zinc, but the amount of zinc and things in galvanized, bad news, at least over a long term. And high acid foods like tomato and vinegar things, pickling,
Yeah.
they really bring out the metal. And copper also has lead in it, both from the welds. So those things are don't mess with them. It's just not worth it to cook on those. Steel, aluminum, cast iron, your appropriate alloys and non-rusting alloys are fine cooking implements. Non-stick, it's up to you, but do not bring them up into high heat in your, I'd say over 400 degrees. Your searing temperatures, it's a bad idea. It also does not sear nice. It has a very smooth, you don't get a good crust. You get the non-stick does not perform aesthetically, even though you get the browning. I don't like the color, the look, or the flavor from it, regardless of any of the other issues.
Well, oh my gosh, it's 10 after
I
10:30.
know.
We should probably wrap this up, you guys. We've been going for a while now. But and I do have to work tomorrow morning
I
again.
gotta work tomorrow morning.
Yes, but you don't have a drive to work.
I do. I have
You have
orders. I have
deliveries.
orders coming in.
Yeah.
I have to go to the bank and make sure that I can
You do
pay
have
for
to
the
run
orders.
errands. Yeah.
I have a huge aluminum stock pot that fits
Non-cooking
from.
question. When you got your goose, did you get it with chicks? We do not buy our chicks, but what I did do, and we did not buy a goose. Actually, what we did, and
What? Yeah.
we do have a series on it. If you look at it's a series on Lucky, so I'm not sure how I named it, but Lucky's are one of our two guard geese. We got goose eggs. We have a local meat goose farmer, and he sells at the farmers market. So we got goose eggs. We waited for
We asked him to get potentially fertilized eggs, and
yes,
they all were fertilized.
they were. We waited for our chickens to go broody. Gave them a heads up saying we'd want some goose eggs, but we're waiting for our chickens to go broody because we don't have any artificial setup here. So we waited for our chickens to go broody. We had one main girl go broody first, and he gave us 4 goose eggs. All I need are 2 guard geese. So he gave us 4 goose eggs. Within a week, 2 of my silkies went broody, which was very helpful because geese, and I believe ducks too, take 28 days before they hatch, and for chickens it's 21 days. So what I did when those other 2 girls went broody, and now have 3 broody girls, I took 1 goose egg and put it under each broody girl, and then I took, I think, 3
yes,
chicken
Kathleen,
eggs.
That's what we did. Our goose run with the chickens. They were raised completely.
They were completely raised with the chickens, but they were also raised by broody chicken mamas, so they were completely surrounded by chickens. So yes, I did raise them with the chickens, partially because I didn't even look at the way Justin did it originally.
He was a big promoter of guard geese, so that was, I think, why we started decided to do it.
Yeah, because we had lost some chickens and things. So, but
He does incubator for his.
he buys them live.
But
He
they buy
buys
them
them
live. I thought he did
day
incubator.
old.
Okay.
Yeah, he
Okay.
buys them day old with his chicks. So that's
Okay.
where that question came from. I don't have that set up. So I basically just use my chickens to raise my chicks. And so my chickens raised my geese. Each one ended up hatching 2 chicks and the goose. So I ended up with 3 geese and 6 chicks under 3 moms. So then they all were raised together. And then since we had an extra one, that is why we had a goose for Thanksgiving a year and a half ago, almost, or a year and a few months ago. So that's why we had that in our video of cooking the goose. Is the
Kalamazoo
extra one.
permaculture. Yeah, we've talked about possibly getting together at some point. We don't do any dairy or we don't do any large animals, but we need to get together with you sometime. Of course, if you have dairy cows, eventually you have to breed them so you keep getting milk, which means you get beef too. So that can be nice. And then Webstron. I've never tried. I'm always leery of big companies on their return and their warranty. If I have a really important like measurement or high end, a big piece of equipment, I like to work with a local person. We tell them you spec it, you get it here, you deliver it, you install it. It's your problem, because a lot of people want to keep it cheap. And we've seen that happen where it doesn't fit, and they're like, "Oh, we got to return it to who knows where," and or we have a warranty problem. So for like, if we're buying a new stove or new, $4,000 refrigerator, I like to work with the local guys, even if it costs more. One, we'd like to support the local guys, but sometimes you just can't when they want to charge you 3 times as much. So I'm always leery about returns, but it's good to know that Webstron has worked for you. We've used them more and more and just said, hey, if you can't be somewhat competitive locally, I'm sorry, we have to be smart with our money and our business, and especially my own small business. But a big question, I don't want to risk screw up. I want my local guy to take responsibility for fixing it when it's wrong. And yes, tomato sauce can pit your aluminum. So aluminum will break down over time and use, and you'll get permanent pitting. Acid is harder on it. It is, as I said, an electrolysis issue. So the acid with the metal does create a little bit of electronic current. It causes a lot, breakdown and an oxidation of the aluminum, and that's where some people are concerned that you can get some of the aluminum into the food. I'm not an expert on if it's enough to be harmful. Some people really think it is. I'm not certain of that. I can tell you, you mostly eat off of aluminum commercially, but steel is nicer on a high acid thing. If you're doing jams and jellies and candy and stuff, then you really need to go to copper, tin coated, or steel for quality. I would prefer not to. I do pick steel stock pots when I make tomato sauce, or braziers that are steel when possible. In the better places I worked, I had that option. I always would go to steel. I liked the heat performance and the lack of burning. So the other thing that happens is if you get enough of that aluminum in your tomato sauces, sometimes you can get kind of a metallic flavor. It can off flavor your sauce, and somebody who's very sensitive and a good cook will notice that. I find that frequently even comes in your canned tomatoes if you're buying tomatoes. Cheaper tomatoes, the way they process them, aside from their sugar level and their quality,
Tina, is that supposed to be yours instead of toy?
Can end up getting can be very metallic. Also, so tomatoes are so acidic that cans, which are aluminum, even though they call them tin cans, are aluminum and they're welded, they are coated. So they're usually epoxy coated for high acid things. They have to be, because you can't contaminate with these metals into your canned goods. So you'll see either a yellowish ring around them or they'll be white on the inside. So they're typically dipped in epoxy, and that is your high quality way to preserve tomatoes. So you do not want to, cheap tomatoes will cut the corners on that. Cheap crab meat, pasteurized crab meat, and you will taste the metallic flavor in those cans, and they're junk. So don't buy the most expensive tomatoes. They're not necessarily better, but really, really cheap tomatoes, there's a reason they're junk. So buy them from your farmer's market or whatever. So
yes, we still have olive oil.
Yeah, we got lots
Lebanon.
of olive oil.
Yeah.
I just picked up 2 more cases from the importers. Last week we saw them.
Yeah.
And
And I got your typo on your previously retracted messages there. your you was turning into a toy. But I understood. So anyway, we really do have to get
Yeah, I
going here.
gotta finish up stuff.
Thank you, Suburban Hillbilly, for posting that link there. And if there's other questions or whatnot,
next week we are not here.
oh yeah, we got to mention that next week we have a big event, or you have a big event.
I am a feature. I was asked to be a featured chef at like the best dinner of the winter, or that, in my opinion, one of the best dinners of the year locally. Yeah. 8 chefs are asked to present a course they called All Star Chefs. It's for about 180 people, and we each present a tasting course. And so I was assigned pasta and pork, and so I was really excited. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a ton of fun. As well as it's a great marketing event. So
oh, and if anyone local is in the room,
I think I was just told usually it's sellout, but I was told there's a couple cancellations because there's usually a long waiting list year to year. Yeah, it's at Bravo Restaurant on Portage Road out by the airport. It's a very well-known, good restaurant. Sunday night, 5 o'clock. You have to call them direct. They don't even put it up on a web because it's so it's so well known and they're regulars. They send out. So if somebody's in town really wants to go to that, it'll be an awesome night. I don't know the cost. It's like $75 or $100 a head. I think it's not cheap. And then they do wine and beer pairings. They brew all their own beer. And I think it's another like $75 for the wine pairing, but they pour really nice stuff. It's worth every dollar. So
you want the recipe of the pork and pasta dish that he's making?
That's going to take you about 3 days to make. I'll give you some hints of what I think I'm doing. So I am making, it's either 4 or 5 flavored and vegetable flavored and 1 black colored pasta. The largest portion is going to be duck egg. Local duck egg pasta. It's going to sit over the top of sauce tomate, which is classical French tomato sauce. We can go into that at some other point, what makes that different. People don't really do that much or even really know about it. It's not the Italian one. I am going to do 3 pork items. I think we've got pork sweetbreads coming in from a local processor, I believe. I'm trying to find them tomorrow if they delivered. To a friend of mine. I am going to make a mini sausage, and then I'm going to do some sous vide Duroc pork belly. I'm going to have some peas and wild forage dried mushrooms to put over the top with that, and
we'll get
some chives and pea shoot. Yeah, so we'll have some pictures. Cindy's going to be shooting live vlog. Oh, no. Or not live. She's going to be shooting live and then editing into a vlog. Yeah. So it's live action condensed. Yeah. And she's going to put that into a video, which we're going to give to the restaurant, and we'll be able to post. So you'll see what I'm doing, but there are 7 other chefs who will all be doing courses, and it'll be the kitchen end of things. I don't think she's necessarily going in the dining room at all. It's the back end of pulling off a signature dish, kind of a celebrity chef event. Yeah. So we'll be doing that right during this time next week.
Bandana Grandma, I'd like to make Boston brown bread in cans. How do you find safe ones?
Oh, well, so most of your cans are food safe. If they haven't been abused and rusting, they have to be food safe and non-leaching to be used in the U.S. Same with all your plastic. I mean, you could debate whether the government, or somebody has let things go that shouldn't, but they are supposed to not leach and put anything bad into you. So if you're reusing a can, it should be fine. But the ones that have that yellowish rain, it has a yellowish tinge to them, they're typically epoxy lined. So epoxy is so hard, unless that's cracked off, nothing gets through that. That's a good source. Paper lining, grease paper. So greasing the can or spraying it with a Vaseline or a little oil, putting in a paper that fits, a ring, and then re-greasing the inside of that paper is a classic way to do a pan release. It should slide out, and then you can pull the paper off, and that is an excellent way to handle something that's going to be really sticky like a brown bread. You can buy the cans of brown bread just ready to go, but you might make a better one. I haven't had brown bread forever. Oh. Speaking of that.
Tina says you should sell a kit with the award-winning recipe and ship the spices and the pasta.
We have talked about creating some semi-ready to go items. Yeah. And where you would add your protein of choice or not add the protein. But we've talked about doing that. We're trying not to diverse. I've got so many projects and avenues already professionally, and we need to handle them, enough at a time that we don't get overwhelmed. We want to deliver consistently and regularly and not, run out of things or not shortchange. We have a number of people doing local healthy meal prep boxes that are local food. So we have talked about partnering with some of them. One has moved and actually putting our pasta and letting them do that work.
I'm thinking this comment has to do with the sweetbreads. Suburban Hillbilly. I don't.
Sweetbreads? Yeah, they're thymus and pituitary gland. So they are actually very mild. They are soft and creamy like a bread pudding. That's why they're called sweetbreads. The pork ones might have a little porkiness to them, but that is. They are not nearly as scary as they sound, and so typically, sometimes they're sautéed or floured and brown buttered. Most often they're fried. So you soak them, you blanch them, you skin the membrane, you separate them into little nuggets. Then you batter and or crust them and fry them, and they're very small, and the pork will be even smaller than the veal. So they're kind of soft in the middle, but firm. They're not slippery, slimy soft. They're just densely firm soft. And so you get a crispy outside and a little salty crispy outside, and then you get a warm center. And they are not, they're not nearly as scary as most people think. But you may not like them.
Bandana Grandma was asking about BPH issues in the cans and the tin.
BPH is in plastic, best I know. I am not sure of an additive or a coating with BPH in can linings. If they have they could have a plasticized coating. I've seen some white, but most of the cans are epoxy, a food grade epoxy coating. So if you let me know if there's a BPH issue. Now, most of the plastics, they've removed the BPH. There's always questions about how much of it leaches, but some of the evidence does show that we were getting a lot more leaching of it than previously known, and that it was not as good as possible.
And more so with heat and things like that too.
And when you increase heat or sun, radiant, and exposure, that increases the release. But I am not aware of cans that being
plastic lined. I didn't realize that there were plastic.
There may be some that have a vinyl lining. There are some brands that have a white, but you can also get epoxy and other coatings that are tinted and colored. And a lot of those colors are natural or oxide colorings. They're not. It's not like they're putting paint in them. Hopefully. Yeah.
Okay, guys.
But yeah, let us know. I've limiting BPH is probably a good. Wherever you can limit artificial, questionable ingredients, even if they aren't necessarily harmful or harmful unless they're in large amounts. There's no reason not to eliminate it when you can.
Yes, it is, Carrie.
Yeah.
We got to get going. We keep answering questions. We will get going. We will not be here next week. We will be here the week after. So I hope you guys have a great 2 weeks. And it's not too crazy.
Yeah, that dinner at $75 or $100 or whatever it is a head. I can tell you, in the big city setting, to have food like that, you're in a $200 to $300. The wine pairings that they did, I did it 2 years ago. The wine pairings that they served I was surprised at how nice they were. For the money, but they were, and then they sold bottles and whatever else. Nobody was obligated to buy into that. If you're into food and you understand the value in food, that price, it's very reasonable for what is delivered that night.
Yep.
So.
Okay, guys, we're going to see you in 2 weeks. And I will get some videos out in the meantime, starting with the pork butchery videos coming soon. So start watching for that series to come out. So I will talk to you guys later. Have a good night.